Monica Nabukira was about to give in to the thought that her husband, John Bosco Chbalama, could have died in the hands of one of the security agencies when in early 2023 the Prime Minister, Robin Nabbanja, admitted publicly that he was in the hands of the state.
For example, if you can read, Chbalama John Bosco, abducted on 3rd of June 2019 from Kanyanya, Gayaza Road. Now, how do you trace for Chbalama? But we are fortunate that Chbalama was traced. He was arrested recently in October in a place called Kakiri, and he is one of those that is claimed to have killed police officers in Chiboga, Wakiso, and other places. So there are those who have even declared and accepted that they have been, they are attached to the other rebel group, Coalition for Change. Remember? So such people really cannot be arrested like you are chasing a chicken thief. They are those that you have to use.
When they are shot, they try to resist or not?
Some of them have been shooting police officers and you are aware. Are you not a Ugandan?
There are several of the security agencies carved out of police and the army, the notable ones being CMI, JAT, ESO, Special Forces Command, Directorate of Crime Intelligence, among others, operating through a loose command structure. For instance, as anxiety over kidnapping of civilians by armed men driving in numberless vans, Christian drones, intensified between late 2019 and 2021, police often feigned ignorance on the matter. The victims' relatives often accused police of shirking their responsibility to investigate whenever a case of missing person was reported. At various press conferences, the police and the army spokespersons, respectively, denied knowledge of the whereabouts of the missing persons. Nabukira found solace in Nabbanja's avowal. She is the country's 8th top most important person by order of the national precedence.
I was about to give up hope on him when Mrs. Nabbanja told the world that they had him. They gave the impression that they had him, or maybe she had seen him or gotten assurances from those holding him. Why then not produce him in a court of law if he had committed any crime?
What followed the admission that Chbalama was in the hands of the state was bewildering.
Before the Prime Minister of the Republic makes her statement on the subject matter, she must prove to this Parliament that she's a serious person.
By the time she comes to the house, she was in Chankwanzi, and I told her, you must come to the house. The issue is about the women. She's serious. She's a very serious person.
Much obliged, Right Honourable Speaker. And I can see, Right Honourable Speaker, that the Prime Minister is visibly angry with my use of the word serious. And I will conceptualize it, Right Honourable Speaker.
You just withdraw your statement, Honourable. I beg of you,
Right Honourable Speaker,
for us to have the thing go conclusive.
I am going to withdraw as my last statement. Right Honourable Speaker, at the beginning of this session, with your indulgence, I played a video in this House of Parliament quoting the Prime Minister about a citizen that has disappeared for 3 years.
Now you're destroying my women's debate.
Oh, no, Speaker, allow me to make my statement. The Prime Minister was supposed, you ordered the Prime Minister.
There is an order from the Prime Minister.
Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, I have tried my level best to serve my country. I am one of those patriotic Ugandans.
You have not tried, you have done it.
Is it in order for my brother to say that I am unserious?
I'll withdraw after making my statement. She made a comment that she is in the knowledge of a citizen that has disappeared for, will be 3 years on 3rd June. Because that statement she made that she is aware of the whereabouts of Chbalama, and she's never surrendered him to the public, and she wants us to listen to her on another statement. That's why I was putting seriousness in the context. Right, Honourable Speaker. Right, Honourable Speaker, will the Prime Minister rise and inform the country where Chibalama is so that we can listen to her as a serious leader in this country? You said you know where he is. The family for 2 years and 11 months, they're looking for Chibalama. Only you know where he is.
She, however, remains hopeful.
He's my husband, but we are never together at all times. Maybe he committed a crime, but that means he should be committed to court or prison, so we know he is somewhere. Imagine, we had twins he left aged 2 years and a half. Now they are aged 7.
Chibalama was abducted by security on June 3, 2019 in Kanyanya, a Kampala suburb, is one of about a dozen persons presented variously by the opposition National Unity Platform Party as among dozens of their supporters kidnapped, disappeared and even feared dead. Security organs have vehemently denied knowing his whereabouts.
I don't know whether it's blind hope, but we remain hopeful. I have heard stories that he's among people they killed and their bodies dumped in Lake Victoria, fed to the crocodiles or buried somewhere along Entebbe Road. But when Nabanja commented on him, that gave us hope.
Others are John Damlida, Vincent Nalmoso, Martin Lukwago, Shafiq Wangolo, Yuda Sempija, Muhammad Kanata, Moses Mbabazi, Hassan Mobiru, Dennis Zimula, and Michael Semudu. Since the 2021 election campaigns, NUP has categorically accused security organs, particularly CMI and SFC, of having led the operations in which dozens of their supporters were kidnapped and carted off to ungazetted locations, many of whom came out maimed. There were also tales of rape as a tool of torture of both men and women in detention facilities, which claim security organs have denied. Unlike the hopeful Nabokeda, Sarah Damlila is grossly fed up with dealing with ambiguous laws.
We have searched and searched everywhere, but in vain. We have spent money looking for him, but in vain. We have been defrauded by people claiming to work for security who said they knew his whereabouts. Imagine all that financial and mental exhaustion.
She wondered why the state doesn't return the remains of her husband to be laid somewhere.
Imagine, some people are already calling us widows, but why should we? There are many witnesses to the fact that Damlila was taken away by security people, which means he's in the hands of the state.
Damlila had just opened his motor spare shop at Kiseka Market in Kampala on December 19, 2020, when armed men raided and carted him off to an unknown destination. Today, his wife and 7 children are living like paupers. Mary Namuyanja, Martin Lukwago's wife, narrates a similar ordeal of being condemned to single motherhood.
It is not easy living like this. The torment of not knowing whether your loved one is alive or dead. My husband was kidnapped in full view of the public, so there was no way the state can say they don't have him.
Her husband was kidnapped by a coterie of security personnel raiding in 2 drones from Middle East Bugolobi Market in Nakawa on November 23, 2020. They brandished guns and concealed their faces by wearing balaclava, according to witness accounts. According to witness accounts, the marauding security personnel could barely identify Lukwago and asked others who worked in the market where he was. By the time of his arrest, Lukwago had taken a break and was playing Ludo with his friends. Eventually, the soldiers encircled him and his friends. At the time of his arrest, he was recovering from a hernia operation, which makes some relatives believe he could have succumbed to it.
We have spent a lot of money looking for him, but in vain. Some people claiming to work for security have taken advantage of us, asking us to pay money for information leading to his whereabouts.
But Namuyanja said they remain hopeful and have visited several non-detention facilities from Nalufenya, Injinja, Kitalia Maximum Security Prison, CMI headquarters in Imbuya, and several police stations, and all searches for the father of 3 were in vain. Then there is the daily life hardships.
We had 3 children, whom I'm now struggling to raise. People call you a widow behind your back. Some well-wishers want you to first sleep with them to get help. It is really a tormenting situation.
Yesterday, but one on Friday, President Museveni pardoned the group of Olivia Lutaaya and 18 others that have languished and oscillated between Nuzira prison and the General Court Martial in Makindye for the last 40 months. The group was charged before the General Court Martial in the defiance of the Constitutional Court ruling that the military court has no powers to try civilians. Ms. Lutaaya and the group spent more than 4 years in jail and were variously denied bail. Others included Rashid Seguja, Robert Rugumayo, Mudin Kakoza, Abdu Matovu, Misat Chiwanuka, Ibrahim Wandera, Asbat Nagwere, Stephen Masakuru, Paul Mwanguzi, Sheriff Matovu, Davis Mafabi, Livingston Chigozi, Soib Katabi, Siraj Mudebo, Joseph Muganuzi, and Stanley Luanga. The securing of freedom for the group that materialized with the presidential pardon was a result of several back and forth, including involvement of the Junior Minister for Youth and Children Affairs, Balam Barugahara Atenyi, who took it upon himself upon swearing in office. The episode, however, is reminiscent of when scores of youth rounded up during the September 2009 riots, which broke out after the government blocked Kabaka Ronald Mwenda Mutebi from visiting Kayunga district, when scores of youth rounded up were kept in detention until the run-up to the 2011 elections. Families of the youth picked up during the 2020-2021, some of whom have been pardoned, will tell the tale forever.
He had just returned from his pineapple garden in Bugerere when they kidnapped him. Luckily, his children were at home, so they came and notified me. He has languished in jail for 4 years, and I couldn't afford to keep all his children in school, so some had to sit at home. Olivia was well known around Namuwongo. Imagine they tricked her first before kidnapping her near our police post. When I went there to ask how it happened, they also didn't know. It took me 3 months to know where she had been dumped in Kitalia. His family literally sold everything that could have supported his 7 children, all in the efforts of trying to secure his freedom. His father, mother, and sister have all died dejected people.
Olivia Lutaaya and the group who denied the charges during their 4 years ordeal were strong-armed into a plea deal, after which they were sentenced on October 15th on charges of treachery and unlawful possession of explosive devices contrary to sections 129 and 3 of the UPDF and Firearms Act, respectively. They were arrested during the high-octane presidential election campaigns between 2020 and 2021, which pitted the incumbent in power for 38 years, President Museveni, and NUP's Robert Kyagulanyi. The election campaigns were marred by unprecedented bloodshed and violence, for which government never constituted a probe to guide on the way forward as the country leaps into another election campaign cycle.
Abana ne baba kati abo bola baba ndekera nga tebamanyi tebasobola kujjukira bulungi kifaananyi kya kitaabwe. Oyina abaana ne watyanga bakikoza ababo. Kiki ky'owulira ng'oba abaana ababo be bakutte ne babasibira gye batamanyi. Abatamanyikiddwa ng'abaana ababo be batemyeko emigulu. Be baggyemu amaaso tebakyala bate nga balina obuvunaanyizibwa wabweru. Kati wankwata simanyi nti nkwasiza nagamba oba nziziza musango ki simanyi nga t-shirt gye nyambala simanyi nti nkwasiza. Bwe baatuuka abantuusa mu kapoliisi post k'emutundu ekali awo waggulu, poliisi basibiramu n'abasajja tebasibiramu n'abakazi. By then saasangamu musajja bankuba ne bambuza ki ky'oyambadde.
Sigamba nti tuli mu ssanyu, twasigala nga tuli mu ssanyu nga twagala nti kubanga twaziika abaana. Nze omwana wange ali Katete Bukandula.
The pardon this week coincided with marking of 4 years since November 2020 bloodbath when spontaneous protests broke out in parts of the country following the arrest of candidate Kyagulanyi while campaigning in Luka district for violating the COVID-19 prevention guidelines. Chaos ensued as some rogue security elements went about shooting brazenly. A police probe report detailed that some 56 people were killed, of which majority were passers-by or were escaping the chaos. In various addresses in 2021, President Museveni ordered security agencies to produce a list of all individuals in custody as a method of accountability for those who were missing. The president said then the CMI had arrested 177 persons who were granted bail or release, while another 65 were still being investigated. Later, in March 2021, Museveni detailed in a missive dated February 23rd that at least 51 people who disappeared were in the custody of the SFC, an elite outfit within the UPDF charged with guarding the president, top state guests and officials, as well as key national installations. During the subsequent months, the government sided through, among others, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, Parliament, and Uganda Human Rights Commission bickered with NUP representatives over the validity of the names of the various lists presented. The Uganda Human Rights Commission, a quasi-judicial body established to protect and promote fundamental human rights and freedoms, in October last year announced closure of the NUP missing supporters probe, arguing that it failed to ascertain whether some of the said persons existed. NUP consequently filed a case at the High Court to compel the government to produce the said persons, whether dead or alive. The case was dismissed last month, with the presiding judge reasoning that there is no evidence that the missing persons were arrested by the state. During the court hearings, the Attorney General, the government's chief legal advisor, argued that the victims' disappearances were neither reported to police as relatives allege. The Attorney General attached separate search requests from NIRA, Interpol, Police Forensic Laboratory, and the Directorate of Citizenship and Immigration Control, with all results showing from record seen, no record found, not availed, many matches found couldn't 0 to 1. For those killed 4 years ago, the government through the Attorney General's office pledged to compensate victims' families, but without taking responsibility. Little has been heard since 2022, when the Attorney General, Chidiwa Chwanuka, said the process had started. Establishing the whereabouts of the missing persons has specifically proved hard for the family members because the command structure of who sanctioned or carried out the abduction of civilians was not well laid out. This has led critics to draw parallels to the past regimes of Amin and Obote. The army and the security outfits that operated through loose command structures wielded immense powers and by impulse determined the fate of hundreds kidnapped. Just like the previous chapters of anarchy, violence and bloodshed, events which are captured in the preamble of Uganda's 1995 constitution, history keeps repeating itself.